permanent deacon is a man who is ordained sacramentally to represent Jesus Christ. And as a deacon, he comes under the bishop. And I think of the Greek word which represents the deacon, it's diakonia. And the meaning of that word in translation is a servant. And a deacon is one who serves, and he serves in a parish. He helps and collaborates with the priest in that parish, to which he's assigned by a bishop. In Ireland, the bishops have laid down that the training for the deacon, first of all, he's asked to do an introductory year. And that introductory year means he looks at his baptismal calling, he looks at his own vocation, he looks at his own spiritual formation, and particularly is introduced to things like spiritual direction, which is important not just for a deacon but for a priest or any minister of the church. And it's also a year of discernment for him as well. And when that year is completed, then he's formally accepted into a 3-year program. And that program is broken down, like the training for priests, into 4 areas: the human, the spiritual, the academic, and the pastoral. And he, over that 3 years then, he's through a series of lectures, seminars, reading material, through pastoral initiation in a parish, working with the spiritual director. He develops all of those 4 areas over that 3-year period, and that prepares him then to go out and to serve the church. Generally speaking, no, it's not a full-time ministry. It's the deacon. What he does is he holds his job, if he has a full-time job, and he continues to work in that job. So he works part-time. Obviously, the job that he holds has to be compatible with his ministry as a deacon. There can't be any fundamental problems there which would clash with the whole nature of ministry and service. So given that the job is compatible and he wouldn't be accepted otherwise in the first place, then he works in a part-time capacity. Occasionally you do find that some deacons may be asked to work in a full-time capacity. For example, one could see it in the administration maybe of a large diocese. There, for example, could be room for the employment of a full-time deacon. Yes, permanent deacons are ordained. It is an ordained ministry. There are, if you like, I suppose, what you might call 3 levels in the ordained ministry. First of all, you have deacons, permanent and transient. Transient is on the way to ordination. Secondly, you have priesthood, and thirdly, you have the episcopate. So the deacon is ordained to represent Christ sacramentally. Deacons are ordained, and there are 3 roles that are normally assigned to deacons. First of all, they serve at the altar, so that involves assisting the priest at Mass, bringing communion to the sick sometimes and the housebound. They serve the ministry of the word, so the proclamation of the gospel is obviously one of the areas they would work in there. They could also preach the homily at Mass. They can assist at funerals, those sort of things, do baptisms, celebrate the sacrament of baptism. And the other area is the ministry of service. And in that they visit the sick, they visit those who are in prison, they look after people who are poor or destitute. So in summary, they serve at the altar, ministry of the word, and the ministry of service. Absolutely not. Deacons are not intended to displace any other members who help in the church. I'm thinking, for example, of readers, lay Eucharistic ministers, servers, other people who are involved in a voluntary capacity in the church. The deacon is an ordained minister, and he is not intended to replace any of those other people who work in the church. Yes, married men are deacons. It is intended for married people and for single people. If a married man chooses to be a deacon and he's accepted, his wife has to be in agreement, and in fact she has to give her consent in writing. And I would think across the world the vast majority of permanent deacons are married men rather than actually single men. The diaconate and their work has to be compatible, and they have to try and bring harmony into their life in terms of family life, their work life, because it is a part-time ministry. So sometimes trying to juggle work and family life are important, and one has to respect those commitments in terms of one's marriage commitment, and if you have children as well. For a married deacon, there are two conditions. One, they have to be 35 years of age, and secondly, they have to be in a stable marriage for at least 5 years. A single person can become a deacon at the age of 25, but they have to make a commitment to celibacy. Some deacons become priests because they actually in the first instance set out to become priests, and they received the diaconate on the way to priesthood as a transient diaconate. It was intended that diaconate would only be for a minimum, they have to be deacons for 6 months before they can be ordained. Sometimes it's a year, but it is transient. Whereas the deacons that we're speaking about today are the permanent deacons, and they are seeking diaconate as an order in itself, which was restored in the Second Vatican Council. There are approximately 30,000 men who have been ordained to the permanent diaconate today and function as permanent deacons throughout the world. There are various things they do in terms of their ministries are ministry of the word, ministry of the altar, and ministry of service. Any man who's interested in becoming a deacon applies to his local diocese. That's always the first place. So you contact either your local parish priest or the vocations director in the diocese, or indeed the bishop himself, if you wish to apply to become a deacon.